Let's bring in Mandisa Zavala now, who is the Head of Asset Allocation at Alex Forbes Investments. Mandisa, of course, as you've heard from those South Africans, these hikes are really hurting the pocket and, of course, livelihoods. So let's start here. Could you break down the main international and the domestic factors that are behind the March 2026 fuel price increases, particularly just the roles of Brent crude oil prices and the rand-dollar exchange rate?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So the main drivers have actually been more international than they have been domestic. So if you look at the price of oil, it's heavily correlated or influenced by the price of if you look at the price of petrol, it's heavily correlated to the price of Brent crude oil. So recently we've found ourselves at the crosshairs of a war between the US, Iran, and Israel. And that has resulted in a lot of disruption from a supply side perspective, where there's no free flow of goods moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the oil price is as a result of supply and demand dynamics. So in essence, when you find that supply is constrained or supply goes down, the oil price typically tends to go up. Or if you have demand going up, which is an environment that we'd love to be in, that means growth is doing really well, you tend to find that the oil price also goes up in reflection of that. So what we're experiencing now is not the other side of the curve where demand is changed. We're actually experiencing the side where supply is being disrupted. And so because of oil prices having gone up, because there's uncertainty with regards to how long this conflict plays out and how long the Strait of Hormuz will not be in operation, we found that the oil price has gone up. And as a result, we've also been susceptible to the rand-dollar exchange, our currency also reflecting those fundamentals. And because you price fuel in dollars, you find that a weaker rand actually ultimately lands us in a double whammy, where you're experiencing higher oil prices plus weaker rand. So that's why we've seen such massive, steep increases in our petrol prices.
Yeah, I mean, notwithstanding, just some of your concerns around supply being disrupted and the geopolitical concerns, but given South Africa's growing reliance on imported fuel and, recent refinery closures, what challenges, does the country then face in managing these future fuel price volatilities?
The clear answer to that is we are definitely more exposed to global shocks. No other way to put it. There's lower local buffers that we have. If we did have an environment where we had a strong refinery, where a lot of we didn't have to actually import a lot of our fuel, where we were able to sustain ourselves from a fuel perspective to a large extent, or just relatively so, we wouldn't be so susceptible to things that happen from a global perspective. So yes, we have higher import dependence at the current moment. The dollar price is important for South Africa. Recently, we've been experiencing a stronger rand, which is why we've seen relief on a fuel perspective. So over the last year or so, but now that has turned around, we're also on the on the other side. So there's less shock absorbers that we have because of our local refining capacity being so low. If we did have much more of that, it would give us more flexibility, and in essence, we'd have some way of managing the current environment. So it's definitely a shock. It will definitely be a shock to the system.
Yeah, I want to talk about, the 2026 national budget. Just how significant is the impact of some of the new fuel levies and the taxes that were announced in that budget on overall, fuel costs? And what does this mean for South African consumers and particularly inflation?
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to appreciate is when the budget was tabled, none of this was a factor. So this was not a base case. We were actually in a very good environment. South Africa's terms of trade was very strong because we were experiencing good tailwinds from a strong gold price. So the 2026 budget, even with the fuel, these levies coming through and taxes coming through, were actually meant to be a small dent, not necessarily something that would, break the horse's back. But the reality is these are meant to come through on the 1st of April 2026. So we haven't actually seen those in the price as yet. You have a general levy coming through of about 9 cents on petrol and about 8 cents on diesel. And you have also the RAF as well, the Road Accident Fund, also the levy also being around 7 cents. And you also still have the carbon levy fuel that's around 5 cents for petrol and 6 cents for diesel. So that definitely, the combined effect of that, or the combined impact of that, just if you counted and added, that's around 21 cents. That is not in the base already. So far, the increases that we've seen that have come through have been as a result of increases that we've seen from a geopolitical perspective, global perspective. So this is going to essentially be significant, especially if we experience a prolonged war that happens, because I think right now we're sort of playing out with whatever that the market is giving us or whatever fundamentals are giving us at the current moment. Hopefully, by the time we get to April 1st, you find that maybe the war has sort of tapered off or there's been some sort of resolution. But if that isn't the case, it definitely does add a lot more strain from a consumer perspective, but definitely for inflation as well.
I mean, the Road Freight Association is warning of, knock-on effects on transport and food prices. We've also heard, of course, from many South Africans. What are the kind of projections for the broader economic and household impact of this fuel hike then?
So we would shy away from having an outright projection, only because the current dynamics with regards to the war remain so binary. We could literally get an announcement today where that dynamic essentially changes. If you look at just what we know, which is that road accident fund or the RAF levy going up by the 7 cents, you will have a direct effect on fuel, number one, which is a part of the inflation basket. So the people that are on the receiving end will most likely be people that have businesses, especially people that operate on the road from a transport perspective. But there's second knock effects as well, because if you are a producer or you are on the road, you have to pass on that strain that you're getting, which means that strain then ends up coming to the consumer. And once it comes to the consumer, that essentially becomes something completely different, because now it's coming to your own pocket. The other part of these second round effects is where now you get transport costs, which are being filtered into food prices, because in essence you do get food being transported on the road. So I think that it's almost like it's going to culminate into this environment of knock-on effects. And in absence of the Middle East war, it may be, like I said, it's just a minor strain, but it's not so adverse. But unfortunately, it's coming at the very same time where we've got these massive risks that are coming through from the Middle East war, with regards to potentially even more strain on an upward trajectory from a price perspective.
Yeah, Mandisa, thank you so much for that analysis. Really do appreciate your time. Mandisa Zavala is with Alex Forbes.